just met a young man who raises the temperature of his audiences to a very high level. His name is Sir Monty Rock III, and he's become the object of kind of a cult in show business. Monty Rock III is back in town, and we've got him. He's got the kind of a career that seems to disappear and reappear, but when he does reappear, maybe with a new record album such as this, he's back with us, where he started out, where he belongs. I just met Professor Art Russ, who teaches psycho cinema. And if we analyze cinema today, I want to talk about Lee J. Cobb, because I thought he was one of the most perfect. Let me ask Barney Martin, were you ever a fan, or did you ever see any movies of Lee J. Cobb?
Oh my God, of course. Even going back before Waterfront, but Waterfront was, one of the greatest performances on film that I've ever seen was Lee J. Cobb on the Waterfront.
Right.
It was a marvelous, Ilya Kazan directed, of course, but it was a magnificent performance.
You want to know something? I interviewed Lee J. Cobb once, and he never got over the fact that, secretly he tried not to show, but he never got over the fact that they chose Frederick March to do the part in the movie of Death of a Salesman.
I know, yeah.
How do you analyze that, Wasteman and Fight? Now, the same thing with Edward G. Robinson. He created Middle of the Night, and his part in the movies also went to Frederick March. But how do you?
Well, the whole situation is that they don't cast according to one's ability to do the role or one's performance, merits. They cast according to what the distributors around the world say will sell the most box office tickets.
Lee J. Cobb was not at that point a big enough name to do the movie part, even though he created the role on the Broadway stage. Is that right, Maxine?
Well, there's a similar story, if I remember correctly, with Julie Andrews,
right,
when they wouldn't let her do My Fair Lady.
Yes.
And Walt Disney, who was put off by that, according to what I heard, put her in Mary Poppins, partly because he'd seen her on television and liked her, and partly because he wanted to show them that they had been stupid not to put her in My Fair Lady.
I think it's a matter of international box office.
International.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, I want to say first, good morning, early in the morning and late at night. Yours truly, Joe Franklin hosting. We give you a lot of nostalgia, a lot of what's current, a lot of the past and present and future. This week you'll be seeing Brendan Gill of the New Yorker magazine. You'll be seeing Desi Arnaz doing his whole life story with us. Gwen Sumter, by the way, is here today. Very exciting young lady from Peter Kopani's new play. And Heather Haven, who's got her own TV show called Inside. And that's one of my favorite personality shows. And whenever Heather is on the block, I invite her down to co-host and sit with me and chat and just be a good guest, because she's a good talker. Representing a great show called Chicago, a one-of-a-kind actor and a longtime good friend, and his name is Barney Martin. And Barney, every place you go, I know that people tell you that your song there, your big number, that Cellophane Man,
yes,
is so enchanting and memorable and beautiful. Did you know that it would go over the way it did? So, such a highlight.
I personally loved it from the very first moment that I had heard Fred Ebrother and John Kander play it, and I just. My only wish was that I would be able to do justice to it. I just knew that it was a great song, and it's proven so. I think that most anybody who'll sing it will get that quality out of it. I feel as though I bring a little something different to it, but
he's being
it's
terribly
a great song.
modest.
Yes, he does great justice to it. We saw it.
You are great in that number. Barney
I must say that Maxine and I go back a long while. Many, many years ago, we met when I was doing a show called Do Re Mi for Lee Guber, and Maxine had a party in Baltimore for the whole cast, she and her dad, and from that moment on, we've been friends, and I'm so happy to see the great success.
I've got a surprise for them. I brought along that Christmas card. Want to see that Christmas card, Barney Martin? I only saved a few, but I saved that. They are
lovely.
They are the two people who have more or less changed the whole climate of Broadway. They produced what has to be the longest-running show in town, is it?
That's right.
Correct.
That's right.
Musical or non-musical?
Musical or non-musical.
It says, have a Merry Greasemas. And it's Ken Wasteman and Maxine Fox, and I believe they're now Mr. and Mrs., right?
That's right.
correct.
That's right.
Isn't that nice?
And
They did a follow-up review this week and gave it a great review. It said that Carol Culver is magnificent and it's just marvelous.
She's terrific.
Yeah.
We're going into our 5th year now. We're having a big birthday party.
How do you manage to always find replacements that are even better than their predecessors.
Well, it takes a lot of hard work,
Boy,
and we've got a very dedicated group of people working on the
because
show.
if Barney Martin left Chicago, I mean, I'm not just saying this. Nobody could take Barney Martin's part.
Oh, I don't know about
Nobody,
that.
Barney. No, unless Jackie Gleason, and he's too busy playing. Right?
Well, it's very, very hard to replace good performers.
It is.
And you have to really search long and hard. And for each, we have 16 characters in the show. And each time we've done a company, we've auditioned about 2,500 people. Because they have to be able to sing, they have to be able to dance, and they have to be able to act. Because the acting, they have to create these characters. And we want people, when they come see the show, to think that these kids are not really actors. They are dressed like that all the time, and when the curtain comes down, they hop into their old jalopy and they go out for hamburgers. And we have to find people that can convince the audience that that's the way they are.
Have you seen Grease, Barney?
Yes, I have. When I was in All Over Town, it was right next door, and on one of the nights that we were all dark and they were light, I went over and saw the show. It was a sensational
I
show.
gotta tell the whole-
Makes you smile, doesn't it?
Oh,
tell the whole
yeah.
world.
I think that's what I love most
I was a
about
little
Grease. Makes you
older
feel
than
good.
they were in those days.
What makes the 1970s, I mean the 1950s, so fascinating in the 1970s? What's the...
Well, you know, I think that with Grease, it does take place in the 50s, and
Right.
it satirizes a lot of the behavior of that time. But more than that, it deals with adolescence.
Right.
And adolescence is something that everybody goes through, whether it's a more mature person or a young 15-year-old. It's something that's part of everyone's life. And I think that that's one of the reasons why, in addition to the regular Broadway audiences, our matinees fill up with kids 14, 13, 15 years old who are relating to the idea of, what do you say on that first date? You know, they've got all these problems. And how do you relate to the group? Which is very important at that age, but at the same time, have your own one-to-one relationships, which are very nerve-wracking when you're that age.
Well, Kenny, it always feels that that show is like the Christmas stories and stuff. There's always another group growing into the age who will appreciate it. You have an ever-growing audience, a continuing audience.
But it does appeal to grandmothers and senior
Oh,
citizens
yes.
as well as the younger
We had a
ones.
lady one night who came up to me
Yeah.
during the intermission. She was introduced to me, and she said, I'm so glad to meet you. She says, I forgot, she was in her late 60s. She says, I graduated high school sometime in the 20s or whatever. And she said, the fella playing Danny Zuko, which is the lead character, looks just like a boy I had a crush on in high school. And I used to blush every time I saw him. I couldn't say hello because I used to giggle and have to look away. She says, and I'm sitting there tonight, and I'm giggling and I'm blushing. She says, I haven't felt that way in 40-some years. She says, and something, she says, it feels terrific. Then we had another lady come up one day. She came backstage to look for a girl in the cast. And when she found her, she says, I had to meet you because the prom dress that you're wearing, it's my prom dress. And we looked into it. The stage manager came over and asked her, what do you mean, it's your prom dress? She says, it's my prom dress. I'd recognize it anywhere. And it turned out that our costume designer had found that dress at a thrift shop where this woman had taken it.
She'd only
was.
worn it once or twice and then finally gave it away
was
because it
her
had gotten out of
practice.
style.
That's funny. Maxine, I wonder if anybody ever said they wanted 2 tickets for Grease and they wound up in the country, or with tickets for the country instead of for the Broadway show. Because sometimes
We didn't have that happen, but we
No.
had a very funny experience happen where someone, the daughter wanted to see Grease,
Yeah.
and she wanted to take her girlfriend with her. And the parents who were making the arrangements said, fine, you can bring your girlfriend. So the girlfriend says, I'm going with Jackie to Grease.
Yeah.
And she says, who's taking you? She says, well, her parents are taking, and they're making all the arrangements. And the mother thought this was, a little bit much, that her daughter should be taken on a trip to Greece. So she called up and she said, I understand that you're taking my daughter to Greece with your daughter Jackie, but, that's a bit much. Isn't it expensive? She says, no, we're happy to treat her to a whole trip to Greece. She says, of course, they're dying to see it. And, of course, as the conversation progressed, the woman found out it was the show, not the
that's
country.
This is the 5th anniversary of Grease, and Wasteman and Fox are our very special guests, and they're going to meet all of our friends. And Barney, I got to tell you, every time I turn on TV, which is not that often, but whenever I do, I'm waiting to see my own show. I see your pretty face. This man is on.
Right.
Like Bert Lahr once told me, he got more reaction from his one potato chip commercial. You got to give us a little bit about Barney Martin and commercials, and if you use all those products, and just a little bit on the life of somebody who makes all those commercials, Barney.
Well, I'll tell you a funny story that happened to me, and it's a true story. I was doing How Now Dow Jones on
Yes.
Broadway, and I was going between the afternoon the matinee show and the evening performance. I was traveling on a bus going across town.
Right.
And a little old lady got on the bus, and she looked at me for about 2 blocks, which often happens. They don't know where they know me from.
It's funny
They
already.
don't
I love
know
it
my
already.
face.
Right.
And I had a commercial that was very popular at the time from Maxwell House Coffee, which I used to go bum 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 bum. It was called Perky People with Marcia Rod. She played my
Oh,
wife.
yes, Marcia.
And this little old lady looked at me for about 2 blocks, and she finally said, she looked over and she said, "It's you, isn't it?" I said, "Who?" She says, "Don't tell me it's not. It's..." I said, "Who?" She says, "You're on TV. You do the commercials?" I said, "Yes." She says, "You do bapa bapa bapa?" I said, "Right." She says, "Some nights you're better than others." It's true.
Oh, that's wonderful.
I'll never get over it. Of course, my mother was like that. She would think that everything was live on television, and she also couldn't. When she'd listen to radio, she'd say, "You know that Charlie McCarthy, Barney, is very funny, but what he needs that Edgar Bergen for, I never."
Oh, I love that. I want to use that next time.
That's wonderful.
She-
Of course,
she
the
would
kids
never-
probably still think that you're inside the box.
Oh yes, yeah.
Sometimes a 30-second TV commercial can be as much of a major production, Barney, as a film or a Broadway play. Don't they put a lot of
yeah.
effort sometimes into a commercial?
I've done one commercial which took a week to do. It was a 60-second commercial,
Right.
but it took a week. Now you can do some TV shows are done in less than that. I mean, an hour TV show is done in sometimes 5 and 6 days. But we took a week to do a commercial. Of course, it necessitated a lot of technical things, but nevertheless, it'd take a long time. It's a very exacting type of work. A lot of very, very good actors cannot do television commercials because of a coordination problem. You know, when they, probably better actors find it tougher for the simple reason that their concentration is on the message. And when somebody says at a certain point in the message, you better turn the coffee towards the camera and lift off the jar and then say it. Well, that throws a lot of people.
They can't suppress
That's right, the
themselves.
whole-
Right?
Yeah, I mean, they just can't coordinate the
Well,
turning of
'cause
the
you're-
product and
you're,
such.
You're trained from the first time you walk out on a stage to totally concentrate.
Right.
And it's a deep effort. And to come back from that concentration, to remember to screw off the
It's just the exact
cap
spot.
of a jar
Yes. And,
is the antithesis of what they're taught.
Right, Barney?
right, it's true, absolutely.
Barney, I'm trying to remember. I was so close with Barney in the old days. Did you graduate either from dramatic school or from the 38th precinct? Is that
No,
one of those two? I know.
from the
It's one and the
24th
same,
precinct.
isn't it?
You were a policeman. You
Oh,
told me
yes,
that. Yeah,
yeah.
a long time.
But we flew in a helicopter together from Jones Beach to do that with Jerome Hines and
Right.
who is now president of the Screen Actors Guild, Kathleen Nolan.
Right.
We did that benefit in Newark for
Yeah.
Jerome Hines.
That was a nice day. Yeah.
Yes, a lovely day.
Barney,
But,
I know that you were a policeman. Phil Regan. Remember the name Phil Regan?
Yes.
He was a policeman years ago, too.
Yes, he sure was. There's a
proud of
lot
you.
of policemen who are in the business today.
That's
I
great.
see
It's a
there's
great
still more
background to
drama in
draw
the police
from.
precinct than probably people see in drama school.
I've never been cast, though, as a policeman or a hoodlum.
Never yet?
No, and I know all the platitudes and attitudes, but nobody cares.
The two
Well,
biggest
Jeff,
shows in town
Yeah,
have to be
fellas,
Greece
not the type.
Chicago, and I want you to meet a couple of my friends, okay? We're
Yes.
saying happy 5th anniversary. How many times has Greece been performed?
1,650 times.
How long will it go?
Well, knock on wood, the show should continue going.
We are
You
now-
know, Joe, you were the first person to ever mention Greece on
Right,
television.
right.
I think you came to our first preview downtown.
you
And
know
now
who-
we're the
first
8th
opened?
longest running musical of all time.
Of all time.
Of
What are
all
you going?
time.
What are you going to topple next? What do you figure? What
Hair.
show will you top? You'll topple Hair next?
Here
In May.
Yeah, in May.
Boy, they know their facts and figures, right?
But Chicago's coming on, too. We're going to be there a long while.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
Gwen Verdon.
46.
I read where Gwen Verdon happily admits she's a grandmother, and she's got more pep than any teenager I know.
I've got
know.
a question to
Yeah.
ask Barney.
Please.
What was the tone of the backstage when you switched over from Gwen to Liza Minnelli and then back again?
Well, let me say that we were equally comfortable. Of course, Liza is more of a personality, and Gwen is really an actress who became Roxy Hart. Liza, we always felt as though superimposed Liza on top of the show, and
Right.
it became Liza
Because
Minnelli.
the tone of the show changed. We saw it.
Oh
in
yes,
each instance.
absolutely. It was a very electric feeling that went throughout the show, because the people that she attracted, she has the thousands upon thousands of people who came to see Liza sing rather than see the show Chicago, but then were equally thrilled to enjoy the show when they saw it.
Right.
That's a
It was
beautiful
great.
answer. It's a really,
The night we were there were several people sitting behind us who were enjoying the show thoroughly. This was not when Liza was on.
Yes.
And then as we were getting up to leave, they all said, when can we get tickets now to see it with Gwen Verdon?
Right, yes.
Because
we
they
had
were,
a lot of that.
They were very
Yes.
excited to see her.
The producers must have been very gratified with that reaction.
Oh, I'll say.
lot
I
of
mean, she
people.
was a doll to come in, because there's not too many people who can replace a Gwen Verdon.
That's true.
There's just nobody around of that stature. And the other person who might have done it is also in the show, Cheetah Rivera, magnificent talent.
she's
Who
got
goes 60 seconds of every minute.
some vitality.
It shows
Lady
great
is something else.
camaraderie about this business when someone like Liza Minnelli would come in
Yes.
because Gwen was sick. And as a
Absolutely.
result, keep the show
I'm
going.
going to bring
and
in
keep
one more
everything-
human dynamo named Monty Rock, all right?
Yeah.
Yes.
You know
right.
Monty?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yes.
Going to give you
yes.
his new record album, autographed. Take it backstage and play it when you need a little injection, because he's a real whirlwind. These announcements, then back with Barney Martin and Wasteman and Fox, and we'll talk about show business and every kind of business. Stay with us, please.